In the past 3 days, at least 6 students have committed suicide in Andhra Pradesh. Now, these 15 and 16-year-olds might come from different backgrounds, but the reason they took the extreme step was the same. They failed to clear the SSC exam. But so did over 2 lakh students. The state recorded 67.26 pass percentage this year, the lowest in almost 2 decades. While it was expected that students would need extra care and attention, given the fact that exams were conducted in the state after 2 years, the results did come as a shock for many people. Besides COVID, what were the other reasons for the poor results? The new Indian Express spoke to several teachers and parents who opined that the students did not have adequate time to learn the basics that they lost touch with because of the 2-year-long hiatus. Dr. Vishal Indla, Chief Psychiatrist at Indla's Vimhans in Vijayawada, explains how writing practice was affected in the 2 years when schools were closed due to COVID.
The last couple of years have not been easy on kids at all.
Exactly.
From going to physical schools to staying at home and just doing online schooling, there is simply no comparison. On top of it, very important for any exams would be to practice writing, to have revisions, things like that. Looks like writing practice has totally gone out of the window, and 2 years is a very, very long time in anybody's life, especially in a child's life, in a teenager's life.
Okay.
2 years they have spent doing everything online. See, usually what happens when they go to school, they have homework assignments. They have to come back home, they have to write down things, they have to read up things, they have to revise things. And exams also were very kind of easy on the kids in the last 2 years during COVID. Most of the exams were online, and usually they get help, and anyway they were passed because health was everybody's priority. Nobody was thinking of even exams during COVID period because everybody was obviously for genuine reasons were worried about the health and safety of everybody. So at that time, studies took a big beating, and most of the time online when teachers were teaching, a lot of kids were in their own world doing other things online. And it's not to even pick fault with kids because it's simply not easy to focus, especially in that age, on what a teacher is telling. While talking about the writing practice, the specific point is writing is an important skill. Knowing things is one thing, but to put it on paper, because ultimately the exams for 10 students is what you write on that particular day in those 2 or 3 hours. For anybody, if they lose practice for 1 month, they go for a holiday and come back and they have to again start writing. It takes some time to gather their pace and momentum. Imagine for 2 years they have not been writing at all, and then suddenly they are expected to do all these things, and especially in the last 6 months. Until then, nobody was even sure whether we'll have actual physical exams or this year also we will have these kind of exams. So there was an attitude among teachers, among students and parents that you never know what is in store, whether we'll actually have real exams. So somehow the preparation was also not obviously up to the mark. Otherwise, it's hard to explain that such poor results could happen.
When schools reopened, the government had decided to cut down the syllabus. However, teachers said that was not the case. Only some sub-chapters were removed. Another reason that was held responsible for the students' failure was the change in the examination pattern. The Education Department accepted that the number of classroom hours had reduced to 140 days for the academic year 2021-22 as against the mandated 200 days. Describing the results as close to reality, Principal Secretary for Education B. Rajshekhar said the reason for the poor performance was the strict crackdown on cheating. He added that it exposes the capability of students and teachers. He further said that the assessment of the answer sheets was done in a fair and objective manner. These figures highlight not just the intensity with which the pandemic disrupted education systems, but they also shed light on how class 10 and 12th results are still considered holy grail. But guess what? Failing these exams is not the end of the world. Did you know that Pawan Kalyan is a 12th dropout? At a recent event, he had confessed that he wanted to end his life after he scored less marks, but his brother and sister-in-law helped him come out of depression. Dr. Vishal explains what triggers teenagers to take such extreme steps.
suicide is not just a single cause phenomenon. Suicide is generally multifactorial. When I say multifactorial, it means one is, of course, the stress of the exams is definitely the precipitating factor, but there is something called as vulnerability. Vulnerability means there are some people who are more genetically vulnerable to commit suicide and attempt or commit suicide and end their lives. That vulnerability comes through genes, through family history. So that is something that is beyond anybody's control. But of course, the immediate stress is the exams. But there is a vulnerability. If there were not to be the vulnerability issue, by what yardstick we are going, all the 2 lakh students who have failed should have had issues by now. But it's only a small proportion, and that's where the vulnerability factor plays a role. Along with vulnerability, the stress of failing the exam, there are other things like family supports. How supportive is the family? Are they there to catch and help and protect the child when he is going through such turmoil? What about their brought up? How have things been at home? Are there any other issues that are also playing on the child's mind? How has been the reaction of the family in the immediate soon after the results are broken out? How has been the reaction of the family to that? All these things, and most importantly also the child's temperament. There are certain children who are very resilient, who are very strong, but there are some children who are very sensitive. That's their temperament or their personality. So their personality, their coping mechanisms, the supports from the family system, their genetic vulnerability, plus of course immediate failure in the exams. All these things put together ultimately lead a child to this drastic step of suicide. But blaming it on one single cause may not be fair, and it's a complex web where all these things interplay between each other, leading to this drastic step.
Failure is the stepping stone to success. This is one famous proverb that is probably seen on the walls and in the classrooms of many schools. But in reality, is plastering a proverb on school walls enough to make young impressionable minds resilient towards setbacks? Dr. Vishal tells us about the need for parents and teachers to be a child's role model in order to understand them and support them in fighting the challenges that come their way in the extremely competitive world we live in.
Teachers' main consideration would be, how do I make sure my student gets better marks? That's the only consideration that teachers nowadays seem to have. And that again is because of various variables that teachers are judged upon. They will be judged upon their performance, the students' performance, how many passed with say 90%, or how many passed with 9 out of 10, how many passed with this thing, so on and so forth. So can't blame the teachers, but the curriculum is designed in such a way that marks and passing the exams, doing well in the exams is the only yardstick. So teachers also restrict their roles to only that much. Traditionally, teaching and teachers are like role models. Kids copy their teachers. They have their favorite teachers, and if there is a good teacher with good qualities, there could be enormous positive impact on the way a child thinks, processes information. It is such a huge boost for his emotional reserves, for his resilience, and all the other coping mechanisms. I think teachers have a huge role to play. And the yardstick by which they should be measured should not just be the exams. There should be ways in which they can be judged on other parameters, which include mental well-being, positive thinking, stress tolerance, all these things in the children. There are ways in which these can be measured. In B.Ed, there is a small part on child development. That part on child development hardly covers anything. For today's world, for the kind of stress and strain that the kids have in today's world, it's very, very important that teachers have a proper curriculum on resilience, on mental health issues, on coping strategies, on acting like gatekeepers for suicide prevention. All these things should be a part of their curriculum. If they are a part of their curriculum, it comes to them naturally. And once these are important for the teachers, then they will realize that, okay, when I'm with a student, this is how I have to maintain my demeanor. And previously, there were subjects like moral values, human values. There were a lot of importance given to extracurricular activities. Slowly, those things have changed. Even before COVID, that changed because ultimately parents want children to excel in their studies, get good grades and ranks, so that they get entry into good colleges. So if everybody's priority is getting into good colleges, then who is going to take care of the mental health issues? It's nobody's priority. So as a society, I think we all failed in this process because all of us have put priority on the wrong side, and we have not got our priorities right in terms of mental well-being, in terms of resilience. These are things that have been lost in the process of prioritizing exams and grades and marks. Also, when it comes to schools, they have these parent-teacher meetings where they call the parents. So one very good avenue for the schools to connect with the parents about not only marks. Usually in parent-teacher meeting, most of the discussion centers around, okay, what is the weakness, which subject is he strong, which subject is he weak, so what can be done? That's all the discussion happens. But I think if they can have some mental health professionals to come and talk to them about basic mental health issues, not about technical stuff and all, but about importance of resilience, about dinner table conversations. All these things are very important that parents should be made aware of. And where will parents learn this? They are all busy in their own work world. They have so many things to take care of. So that they obviously won't go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist every now and then. So schools will be the bridge where they connect parents with these kind of mental health issues and also ensure that somebody gives them expert advice on what are the things that they should watch out for in puberty. Most of the times the education centers around physical health only. Even if there is health education, it's mostly around physical health. Mental health should be prioritized. Parents are again the biggest role models for every kid. Every kid copies what their father or mother keeps doing, keeps talking, the way their mannerisms are, etc. So it's very important that I just mentioned about dinner table conversations. So everybody is busy in today's world. Both mother and father are working. But having dinner together, at least one meal together, that will be a great thing. And having some conversations on, not on marks, but how was your day? How have things been for you? Who are your friends? Knowing about their hobbies. This kind of a thing will make sure that there is very strong bonding between the parents and the kids. And tomorrow, if the kid has something that goes wrong with him and he's feeling really in the dumps, he will first run to his parents and he will tell them, this is how I'm feeling and I don't know what to do. And then of course, then parents are alert and they immediately, if they are sensitive, they will pick it up. But many times there is, in today's busy world, dinner table conversations or even spending some time, all the whole family together is a rarity. And once that does not happen, though they all stay in the same place, it has no proper meaning and positive influence on the child's mental health. And having proper dinner table conversations, or whenever parents get time to talk about their own failures and how they have coped with it, and also to talk about failures of people, because failure and success are like two sides of the coin. Nobody is only successful all the time. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed, but obviously in all the success is always blown out of proportion in a positive way and failure is blown out of proportion in a negative way. But giving this perspective to children, giving proper narratives from their own personal life or from the lives of some great people, it could be an entrepreneur, a cricketer, depending on the child's interest, talking to him, telling stories is a very, very effective way for children to understand these things, that failure is a part and parcel of life. There cannot be any other way.
It is the 21st century and many might believe that the world is their oyster. But that is not the case for several children whose parents still consider engineering and medicine the only two career options worth pursuing. Why does this mentality still exist?
It is a matter of shame and embarrassment for families, for kids, for everybody, teachers, if a child fails 10th standard. That's the way especially in states like our state, where there are only two careers that parents look at. One is you have to become a doctor. The other thing is you have to become an engineer, and that too from a very good college like the IIT. So that's the expectation that parents and the culture here has on children of that age group. In fact, there is on the lighter side, especially in the educational hub areas like Vijayawada, Guntur, There is a saying that, if your child doesn't become a doctor or he doesn't go to the US to pursue something like a MS, you may not even get somebody to marry him off, because that's how important it is to go to the States and to pursue some part of your education there, become an engineer or become a doctor. That kind of a sentiment is very, very strong in our society, in our both Telugu speaking states, especially I think in our belt. It is very, very strong. And when a child has been ingrained with these concepts that they have to do well in their studies, they have to excel in studies, and anything that goes this way, that way, then it is simply something to hang their heads in shame and feel very guilty about. Even parents take it as a personal failure, not only the kids. If a kid fails his exam, the parents consider it's a personal failure on them, because everybody at work will keep asking them, what happened to your child's 10th result? Did he pass? So it's a cascading effect on the parents onto the kids. Sometimes even with genuine, nobody has any bad intentions, but the way parents react to these kind of results, because they themselves take it as a personal failure and sometimes may not talk in a friendly tone to the kids. Sensitive kids, even those kind of small gestures, they will take it in a very negative manner. They will think my parents have disowned me. Parents will never disown a child. Not only about failing the exam, but even performing below what they have expected for themselves. Even that causes a lot of heartburn for a lot of parents and kids in Andhra, in Telugu speaking states, which is not the case with a lot of other metros. I can at least speak for Bombay, Vijayawada and Vizag, because we run our clinics there. So in that sense, yes, the environment of competition is intense in the entire Telugu belt, and especially in educational hubs like say Vijayawada, Guntur, etc. But majority of the kids and parents should realize that the world is so huge now. There are so many things that are happening, and there are so many career avenues. But you tell me the best intermediate study colleges in the Telugu speaking states. The best colleges are the ones which are associated with ranks in MBBS and MBBS entrance and engineering entrance, the IIT entrance. Nobody even knows what are the other colleges. It's hard to really think. If there is a child who is very interested in acting and wants to take up acting as a profession, is really good at it, I can't think of a place where I can send the child in the Telugu speaking states. And for that matter, many other things. There is simply no guidance, and there are simply no such avenues in these states, because most parents still think that these are the only two things. You want to do anything else, you can do after that, but you should have one of these two things. Things are changing, but the pace at which they are changing is extremely slow. It has to speed up much more, and nobody will say, I want a kid to become a sports person, I want him to become a great actor, I want him to become a great chef or an entrepreneur. Nobody talks of those things. They are very, very few. And they think that this is a great security to have one of these degrees in terms of income in the future. But that's a misplaced belief that somehow again got ingrained into the culture, into the DNA of all our parents and all of us.
In the world we live in today, it has become essential for both parents to work in order to sustain in the current economy. Intensity of competition in every field has made it difficult for children to remain resilient through all of it. But then it is equally important to not give up. So how can students balance it all?
I think every kid should, from a very early part of his childhood, inculcate some kind of physical game or a sport or a hobby. It has to be a part and parcel of his CV, of his routine. It can't just be that I'm the class leader, I'm very good in studies. Even if he's very good in studies, we know a lot of people who are in IITs, for example, who commit suicides. Yes. So if you are in IIT, you know that they're extremely talented, but intelligent. But intelligence is one thing. Resilience, coping strategies, the mental strength is totally another thing. So it's important that inculcating how will a child learn about failure and success. Playing games is a great way to learn that. The more a child plays games like, say, outdoor games like football, cricket, whatever interests him, you can't win every game. And when you fail in a game, you don't think like you failed 10th class exam. Because failing in a game is failing in a game. It's taken easily. But once they do these things repeatedly, the same emotional strength will kind of translate into coping with difficult situations. It could be a failure in exam. It could be a failure in a relationship. It could be any of the challenging situations. They can cope much better. But for that to happen, having games in sports as a part of their curriculum is very important. And parents, again, teachers, they should give marks to these things, so that if marks are there, then parents are more worried, and they will make sure that the child has some extracurricular activity, some sporting activity, some game activity. If they're not given importance, it will never happen. And also, I think it's important for children to read books apart from their routine math, science, and Telugu books. Reading books is a great way of inculcating a lot of positive qualities. So, and I also when I tell kids to read books, they'll say, we don't like to read books. School books are only too much. You are asking us to read other books also. The way is, you read what you like. I mean, you may like a Tinkle, or you may like a Reader's Day, whatever it is. You may like a Nancy Drew or Famous Five. You start reading something that you like, and then you will fall in love with reading, and then you can read better books. You will know, and there is so much that anybody can learn from books. But again, in today's world, reading is a rarity even in adults. So to expect the kids to do that is hard. But these are all things because books come with a lot of knowledge in dense packages.
2 students went missing in Sri Satya Sai district as soon as they saw their results on Monday. As per latest reports, they have been traced and reunited with their parents. Many may believe that first impression is the last impression, but more than often, second chances are important for a person to prove his mettle. It may be noted that the supplementary exams for students are scheduled to begin on July 6th, and classes for the students who failed will begin from June 13th.